Hi, Greg.
Hello.
What brings you in today?
Just having some issues resolving around I guess, the social aspect of my classes and being an older male and being an online student. And, I'm more used to the tradition of sitting in a classroom where it's easier to communicate with folks than via text or email, which seems like all I'm doing nowadays. So
Yeah.
just some issues with that, trying to get worked out.
So your program's completely online then? Do you have any contact with students or how does that work?
It's minimal contact. It's through Zoom, video sessions, emails, text, that sort of thing. There's a couple of time periods where we'll meet face to face, but other than that, no, it's all online.
All online. And so I'm assuming your previous schooling, did it have components of that or was it just very traditional?
There were some components. I did some online classes previously, but most of it was traditional where I was in a classroom. The professor was right there, so it was a lot easier to ask questions, compared to now where I have to, send a question off, maybe wait 24 hours to get a response. And if it's not exactly what I'm looking for, go through that process again.
That's interesting. So would you say that when communicating, you kind of need like a more immediate response to kind of work through issues?
Yeah,
Or
I mean, that would be easier. I mean, that would be beneficial, I guess. Unfortunately, that's not an option with where I live. Hawaii, while it does offer programs in counseling, none of them are KCREP accredited.
I see.
If I want that type of accreditation for my degree, especially if I want to work, with the military and on military installations, DoD requires KCREP accreditation within the program. So I can't do I could do a local program, but it wouldn't lead me to the people that I want to help. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So that would be my question. It seems like you really enjoy the traditional aspects of schooling, and I was wondering what kind of led you here, and it seems like the availability in the program itself is kind of what you needed for work.
Yeah,
So
that had to be the driving factor. And I mean, while I enjoy it, it's just so different from what I'm used to. Being in a classroom, having that social, that where I can see someone so I can gauge their reaction, their body language, eyes rolling or huffing, anything like that, where it's so hard to get that through a Zoom session or through an email. You're just not getting it through electronic communication.
right. So it seems that's very fair, and that's just the world. It's unfortunately just fortunately, whoever you are, kind of changing that way. But let me ask, in school, was that social aspect kind of one of I mean, clearly, if you're in graduate school, you're a fan of academia, but were you really drawn for the social aspects as well, or is it just more of a communication?
I think with this, with changing careers like going into counseling, I think that's a very social driven field. And all of a sudden, my training is not as social driven as what the field will require, or what I think the field will require. I mean, I'm only in my second semester, so I believe it will require it. I don't know if I'm missing out, which kind of leads to some anxiety and some stress because I feel I'm missing something that if I was in a classroom setting, I would be getting, and it's just, communication with the professor, where I could ask a question and get an immediate response where now it's not. Excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, don't
No.
be sorry. All natural. Cough if you need to cough.
Yep.
So it seems, yeah. So it's definitely, if this is a fair assessment, it's the social component, but it seems like it might be part of your understanding of communication as well, right? It seems like you're a very expressive person, but maybe to read other people, would it be fair to say that, like, to kind of get a read or an understanding for you, that physical component's really important?
I think so. I mean, in the military, I led platoons. I was a drill sergeant for 3 years. So being able to gauge physically where my soldiers were at was important, because we still had to accomplish missions, but part of my job was also their welfare. So I had to be able to gauge that. And one way, I couldn't have done that electronically. That wouldn't have worked. And it just feels awkward right now, I guess, to try to do everything almost electronically with very little social interaction. It just doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just feels kind of weird, kind of awkward, kind of, I'm out of my normal comfort zone.
So out of your comfort zone, awkward, maybe a little disconnected. Um, so let me ask then, that kind of leads me to your communication style. We obviously, rightfully so, very physical oriented, social oriented, based off of physical cues, I should say. So have you always been that kind of communicator, or was that just through work, or how would you describe your communication style?
I mean, I think that was the way I grew up within the military. I mean, as a kid, I was probably socially awkward, not as outgoing or not as social as what I had to become in the military as a leader. Just in order to do my job, I had to, develop those skills. So I think now I'm more social, but I think, something like this, I could see slipping back into that social awkwardness phase of, like preteen, when I was younger, just, you know, heritage is German and Irish and Scottish, so very pale skinned. Moon the thing. No, he's joking. But there was teasing for that as a kid. And it was just social awkwardness based on that. And had to figure out how to communicate. And like I said, the military did a lot to teach me how to, get the ideas across to, my soldiers from different backgrounds, different, cultures, race, ethnic, that sort of thing. And I learned that. And then now I'm in this environment where it's all electronic for the most part, and I'm not able to utilize the skills that I've learned, I'm not going to say perfected, but, definitely improved upon,
Yeah.
and not able to use those.
Absolutely. It seems like you worked really hard to kind of combat your shyness, and you're very proud of these skills. And of course, this is putting you, in a place of insecurity, if that's fair to say. So let me ask you, in your family, I know you mentioned that being a leader was really important to you. Was leadership important in your family? Communication? How did you guys express yourselves? Tell me a little bit about.
Well, let's see. I was the oldest in our family, although my dad had 3 daughters from a previous marriage that I never met. So, I mean, it was me, and I had 2 younger sisters. My mom was a waitress, so she normally worked evenings and nights. My dad worked for Chrysler, which was usually a graveyard shift. So, I mean, during the day we were at school, but when we came home, it was me. I was in charge, responsible for both of them until, one of the parents came home. Usually my mom, and then my dad would, get home, at 1 o'clock, based on his shift at, the factory.
Yeah. Sounds like you had to take on a lot of extra responsibility, especially, at such a young age. And I can very much see why you chose the course that you did. You both have that work ethic, and you have those leadership qualities. So did that leave many time for friends or a social life?
I mean, I had a couple of friends in high school, but when I went into the military, I didn't make my way home that often. I was, home was St. Louis, but I was stationed up at Fort Lewis, which is in Washington State. So I was, about as far away aside from going overseas at that time that I could. Just kind of getting out on my own. My parents had just gone through their divorce, and it was just, anger at my dad. My mom couldn't afford for me to stay there. Neither one of them could afford for me to go to college at the time. So it was, trying to find a way out. And the military was that.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I learned, to be part of the team, learned a lot in the communication and the leadership within myself. And that all came out through the military, but that's not quite as effective in class.
Well, it seems like, if it's fair to say, it seems like you were very much a leader before you may have even been aware of it, to take care of other siblings and to be very independent on your own. It seems like you kind of maybe started that role there. And, yes, there was opportunity in the military, but I definitely can see those leadership qualities in you. And that's a lot to take on at, such a young age. And would it, sounds like maybe you had to kind of be a little bit older, than your years, or kind of take on that leadership quality when maybe some of your friends were maybe not in the same position.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that about me, that I was older than what my age. It didn't help that I probably had my first gray hair at 16, but hey, there's more. Yeah, there's more now. I embrace it. That's okay.
We've got to. Yeah. Well, it honestly, that's so much to take on, and I, as I said, can totally see why you chose the career you did, and you learned to be, more outgoing, in your words, a little bit more social than maybe you had the availability for before, and that was something that you really enjoyed. And you mentioned camaraderie, so it really felt like you felt included. Is that fair?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So would it be fair to say that maybe this transition is yes, very much different than what you're used to, but maybe that camaraderie is missing, that kind of instant connection and systematic
Right.
connection there.
Yeah, because it's not like I can, go, hey, let's go grab a beer after class and talk about what we just discussed for the last 90 minutes. That doesn't happen in an online community.
Right.
Which,
yeah, please.
Which is just hard to overcome, because now, I'm dealing with students in different time zones, and I am out in Hawaii, so it makes it more of a challenge, than what it would be if I could, attend a class local. I mean, my son goes to UH, so for him, even though he's online, for his masters, for his bachelor's, he was, living in the dorms and, hanging out and doing all that stuff. And I know he's even finding, the online life a little bit different than, the brick and mortar in the classroom type environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I kind of mentioned before, I know a lot of people work virtually now, and it seems to be kind of a new bit of, a new social aspect or component to technology at this point. So it really, camaraderie is missing for you, having that beer after class. Do you think there's maybe a way to creatively think about how you could do that virtually? Or would that even be something that, while albeit not the same, do you think that could offer that communication or camaraderie for you? Is that something you've tried?
I mean, one of my classes, we met through Zoom a couple of times. It wasn't every week or anything like that, but a couple of times. So then you could really put a face to the name.
Yeah.
And then that makes it easier to then do the electronic portion of the class. Just reaching out and trying to talk to someone about their post, and you don't know them, and you don't know why they're stating what they're stating, is a lot harder and a lot scarier to jump into. Because now you're trying to tell someone something about, and you don't know them. You have no background information on them, and you don't have any thoughts on why they, went that route for that answer, where in class you would have. So, I mean, it's just one of the things that I think I'm going to have to overcome. It's just, a bit of a challenge.
absolutely. And, challenges are how we grow, but it's kind of assessing how we feel through it, right? So I guess I would ask again, yes, I'm sure it's making you feel, maybe bringing up, making you feel maybe like that socially awkward kid again, or maybe not sure if you would be accepted by your peers. Is that
Right.
any inklings of that?
Mhm.
So I'm going to ask again, have you actually reached out to someone and kind of offer these feelings, or seen if they felt the same way, or kind of put yourself out there a little bit?
Not really. No. Just like I said, it's a little awkward, a little scary, just trying to, take that initial step and trying to, wondering whether or not someone will respond or if it's just going to, nope, I'm too busy, I've got my job, I've got my own classes, I've got my own stuff to do. And I get,
Well, I'm going to say, I mean, I hear a lot of, you're assuming you're going to be accepted negatively. And it seems like when you went into the military, that must have felt really awkward and very abnormal. And you mentioned you became a leader and you were able to, have this camaraderie and probably created some of it yourself. So I see through your words, that you have this ability. It's just kind of a new and different setting for the challenge. And it's one that I have no doubt you'd be able to meet. I think maybe it's about not assuming that you might be rejected, or of course, you can't control people's reactions, but you seem lovely, you're very great to talk to, very intelligent and kind. Maybe some people are missing out on that conversation with you. Maybe they're feeling the same way. It's we can't control other people's reactions, but I would hate to see you stunt yourself from something you're proved more than capable of being. So would you feel comfortable maybe, in your own time, in your own way, maybe reaching out to someone you feel comfortable or some camaraderie with?
yeah, I think so. I think I could.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be an excellent place to start. But I think it's also fair. This is a new challenge. Transitions are hard, especially when you're considering a career shift, social shift, academic shift. But you've proven time and time again that you were a leader, you faced adversity, and you've risen above that. This should be no different for you. I think it's just fair to maybe tell yourself you're worth having a conversation with, which I think you know. Maybe don't shut it down from that,
Right.
Does that feel
Okay.
comfortable?
Yeah, it does.
Good. I think that might be a good start for you.
Okay.
Yeah, are there any other components that might make you feel uncomfortable with that, or any other barriers for you?
No, I don't think there's barrier other than just my own perceived that we've talked about. You know, the electronics and all of that stuff are available and that type of thing, and I have the time. It's just like I said, my personal little you know quirks, I guess.
Quirks are great.
Yep.
It's what makes us. I think, we all, of course, times of transition bring up those insecurities, bring up the times where maybe we felt socially inept a bit, but I think just maybe looking back on your history and trusting yourself and seeing how much you've accomplished through how much you've faced, and you are a leader. You have done it. This should be no different for you. It's just about giving
Okay.
space.
Okay.
Right. Well, I'm really, really proud of you for that work. I think that'll be an exciting challenge. Maybe you guys can drink a beer virtually together. And, who cares? It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
Yep, it is.
Great. Well, that seems like incredible work. I think that's a good kind of assignment, if we want to say that, to work on for the next time and in your own time and in your space. But Greg, you're going to be okay. You've proven that again and again, and this is no different.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about today?
No, I think that's it at the moment.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with me. You've got this.
Okay. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day.